We're working on fundamental principles for how to uncover mysteries in the New Testament. This is the 8th principle, where I encourage you to listen for anything strange or puzzling. Today, we read the Bible in books. Books first emerged when the Romans used papyrus reeds from Egypt to make paper. In Israel, vellum, which is the soft hide from an animal, was still being used to write the holy writings, which we call the Old Testament, and they were rolled up for safekeeping. The printing press, everything was written by hand until the printing press. These vellum scrolls were only found in synagogues or in the homes of the very wealthy. So people did not learn by reading, they learned by listening and memorizing. And that is why it is very important for you to be able to listen for anything strange or puzzling, because that is what the people of ancient Israel were doing, and that is what would lead them into depth of meaning. How did children learn? Children learn by memorization. They started at home. Then the boys would be sent to the synagogue to learn at what was called the Beit HaSefer, which means the house of the book. Very few of them would have been sent to what was called, when they got older, to a Beit HaMidrash, and that's the house of Midrash. Midrash is to get into that depth of meaning. We have to learn to listen for anything strange or puzzling, because in ancient Israel, they were listening and they would hear anything. And these are clues. These were clues to the people of ancient Israel that would lead them into depth of meaning. Let me give you an example. We have the parable of the mustard seed. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, and this is smaller than all other seeds. But, now, when you hear the but, you're going to get a contrast. When it is full grown, it is larger than the garden plants and becomes a tree. We've got a problem. This is a picture of the mustard plant. It's very small, and here are some seeds. They're small. They're very small. They do not become trees. And yet we read, when it is full grown, it is larger than garden plants and becomes a tree. And then it continues, so that the birds of the air come and nest in the branches of this tree. The capital letters indicate a quotation from the Old Testament. The birds of the air nest in its branches. You've learned two things. Number one, you have to listen. Listen for anything that is strange, or puzzling, and that is going to be a clue that will lead you into deeper meaning. Next, you have to recognize a quotation from the Old Testament. You have to know where it is, and I'm going to teach you that you have to go back to the Old Testament to read it in its context, because people didn't memorize verse by verse. Back in the ancient world and in the third world today, they memorize whole blocks. So this tiny little quotation would kick off the block in the mind of the people of ancient Israel. Listen for anything strange or puzzling, and we're going to learn what to do with quotations from the Old Testament. So that's our principle for today. I trust this series on uncovering mysteries in the New Testament has convinced you there is a much greater depth to the gospel of Christ than is currently being taught. If you want to know more, we have a self-study course called Hebraic Methods of Bible Study on Udemy that you can take at your own pace when you are ready.